MLB free agency is upon us, and it kind of feels like it's a world of possibility. Any team can go out there, spend millions of dollars, and make their roster so much better. But if you've been watching baseball long enough, you know that some teams are not really interested in that. But speaking of the word interested, we have some crazy lore throughout baseball history with teams making plays for big players, ultimately for that partnership to fall through. And in doing some research and asking you guys on Twitter, I found some of the craziest what-ifs in MLB history. As per usual, I like to start with one of our more recent examples. In the first week of March, heading up to the 2022 regular season, it was hard to believe that the reigning World Series champion Atlanta Braves had still not locked down a deal with Freddie Freeman. All baseball fans, like myself, had just assumed that Freeman and the Braves would simply work out whatever their differences were. They had just claimed the 2021 World Series trophy a year after Freeman won his first MVP, and had been together for a dozen wonderful seasons where Freddie made 5 All-Star teams, won 3 straight Silver Sluggers, and clubbed well over 300 home runs. Freddie Freeman was a future Hall of Famer, and I think the Braves would have been keen to lock him down in one uniform for the rest of his career. After all, they always ensured that their best players stayed put until the very end of their prime, but that certainty seemed to fade away a bit with each passing day. Then, the bomb dropped. On March 14th, Atlanta shocked the baseball world by swinging a trade for fellow All-Star first baseman Matt Olson, swiftly inking him to a hefty 8-year extension, all but confirming that Freddie Freeman was not going to return to the organization. In the 4 days that preceded Freddie finalizing his eventual 6-year, $162 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers, rumors were running rampant. The New York Yankees and Toronto Blue Jays had been linked to Freeman for months at this point, but one team who was still present in negotiations near the finish line seemed too crazy to believe. That team was the Tampa Bay Rays, who would enter the 2022 season with 36-year-old Corey Kluber as their highest paid player. Safe to say they had some room on their payroll. The Rays' final offer was 6 years and $150 million, not far off from the winning contract. This would have completely trounced their previous record signing of a free agent, which was outfielder Greg Vaughn, who inked a 4-year, $34 million contract in 1999. This pursuit of Freddie Freeman was likely motivated by the recent extension signed to prized young shortstop Wander Franco, who would find himself out of baseball completely just 1 year later for heinous crimes committed off the field. In quick succession, the blurry vision of a potential star-studded future in Tampa Bay faded completely, and Freddie would go on to add 2 more World Series rings to his mantle as a member of the juggernaut Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, we can be real for a second. Freddie Freeman and the Tampa Bay Rays might have never been more than a negotiating tactic by both sides, with the Rays trying to drive up the price for the Blue Jays and the Yankees, and Freddie trying to drive up the price for his own personal earnings. But this next entry is one that we were all led to believe was going to happen until a shock twist at the 11th hour. On the morning of December 1st in 2015, David Price teed off at a charity golf outing, seemingly with full intention to sign a long-term contract with the St. Louis Cardinals later that day. The contract was slated to be the most lucrative in the history of the franchise to that point, a 7-year offer worth near $180 million. And it makes sense, the Cardinals needed pitching. Meanwhile, in Boston, Dave Dombrowski was ramping up talks with ace Zach Greinke. But when Greinke's team made an aggressive push after offers came in from the Dodgers and Giants, the Red Sox changed gears. They instead shifted their focus to David Price and increased their offer from the Cardinals' range, offering Price $30 million more than what he was slated to earn in exchange for a quick and decisive answer. In the end, the aggression paid off, and the Cardinals were left in the dust as the bridesmaid, and David Price would sign with the Red Sox on a 7-year, $210 million contract. Their big free agent addition for a starting pitcher would end up being Mike Leake instead, who spent parts of 2 unremarkable seasons with the club. In fairness to the Cardinals, the David Price and Boston Red Sox pairing had some serious bumps in the road. Despite signing the largest contract for a pitcher in team history at that point, Price never put together the elite seasons we had become accustomed to in his previous years with Tampa Bay, Detroit, and Toronto. David Price led the league in innings pitched in 2016, but battled injury for the remainder of his contract beyond that first season. He would pitch to an ERA 18% better than league average in just under 100 games started with Boston, but he is fondly remembered for his heroic performances on their 2018 World Series run, where the Southpaw allowed just 3 earned runs in 19 2/3 innings over his final 4 postseason outings to help Boston claim victory yet again in the Fall Classic. That performance alone was probably worth all the money spent. The first 2 teams we've talked about in this video have not been well regarded as high spenders, especially in recent years of free agency, but our next team is always trying to spend money, they just don't exactly spend it that well. Say what you will about the Colorado Rockies franchise, but one thing you can't pan them for is cheaping out. Sure, you can point to more bad contracts than good, but they're always active in free agency in some capacity. But in 1995, their reluctance to attach a little extra dough to a contract offer is likely the reason they missed out on a future Hall of Fame infielder who was really excited to play for them. In the abbreviated 1994 season, Astros second baseman Craig Biggio led the league in both doubles and stolen bases as one of the most dynamic players in the game. Dating back to 1991, Biggio had put together 5 straight 4-WAR seasons, stole 30 bases or more in 3 of those seasons, and had claimed the Gold Glove and Silver Slugger award at second base in consecutive years. From the outset, Biggio had no desire to leave the Houston Astros, wanting to help bring the team its first World Series championship. But differences with ownership soured the relationship, and Biggio would hit the open market, receiving serious offers from the St. Louis Cardinals, San Diego Padres, and none other than the Colorado Rockies, the last of those 3 teams being the preferred destination. For context, Houston refused to budge on a 4-year, $22 million offer to retain Craig Biggio. $22 million over 4 years for a future Hall of Famer. Do you know what $20 million in 1 year gets you now? Try Nick Castellanos or Eduardo Rodriguez. This whole section drives me nuts. But per the New York Daily News in 1995, it was the Colorado Rockies that were considered heavy frontrunners in this bidding war from the outset, and even informed Craig Biggio that they would not be outbid by any other competitors in the sweepstakes. This turned out to be a massive lie. When Biggio and his agent pushed for a 5th year to put the Rockies' offer ahead of Houston's and to match St. Louis's, general manager Bob Gebhard refused. In Biggio's own words, he was likely just minutes away from joining the organization had they attached the 5th year. Craig Biggio spurned the Cardinals and returned to the Houston Astros on the lesser original deal, continuing to put together his Cooperstown-bound career in the same uniform he had always worn. Craig Biggio could have joined a lineup of Dante Bichette, Vinny Castilla, Andres Galarraga, Larry Walker, and Todd Helton, but this was all simply never meant to be. And this in-division bidding war between the Astros and Cardinals won't be the only in-division bidding war we talk about on today's list. But before we continue with today's video, I gotta shout out Arena Club for sponsoring today's video. Arena Club's original slab packs bring the thrill of ripping packs combined with the power to buy, sell, and trade all in one place. They're the most trusted name in the game, offering full transparency, showing you every card in the pack with the likelihood of pulling each one, so you know exactly what's available before you buy. From your digital showroom, you can trade, sell, retrieve, or auction your physical card from the Arena Club vault. Yes, the packs are digital, but the cards are real. With every slab pack, Arena Club will make you an instant offer on your card based on its market value. That's right. No guessing, no waiting. You'll get an instant offer based on the estimated fair market value, and you can accept it on the spot. Simple, fast, and risk-free. If this sounds good to you, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/jollyolive and using promo code jollyolive right now. Take advantage of this offer today, and thank you to Arena Club for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to our video. It's finally time to open the Red Sox-Yankees can of worms. Over a decade later, with free agent contract numbers inflated to previously unforeseen metrics, a heated bidding war took place for the best bat on the market between baseball's best rivalry. After his involvement in a midseason trade in back-to-back seasons, it was clear that first baseman Mark Teixeira was looking to settle down and find a long-term home for the back half of his career. Since he entered the league in 2003, all Tex had done was hit, clubbing over 200 home runs through his first 6 seasons in the show, not to mention some sparkling defense at first base. Finally able to move off an aging Jason Giambi, the New York Yankees emerged as major players, with the Baltimore Orioles, Washington Nationals, and Los Angeles Angels making concerted efforts as well. But their main competition was the most likely suspect in the Boston Red Sox, who had just fallen 1 win shy of a second straight World Series appearance. Boston's involvement was definitely surprising, considering that they currently rostered Kevin Youkilis, who was in the midst of a 2-season stretch where he posted 6 WAR, 20 or more home runs, and an OPS that was over 40% better than league average. But with Youkilis displaying a capability to play third base, the Boston lineup could become absolutely ferocious with the addition of Mark Teixeira at the opposing corner. Suffice to say, Mark Teixeira's preference definitely lied with the Boston Red Sox. In his own words, Tex loved Terry Francona and Theo Epstein and had assumed an airport meeting between the two sides during the 2008 offseason was going to end in a handshake and a signed contract. But when Boston came to Scott Boras with a similar similar offer to their competitors rather than a raise in salary or years, Boras balked at the offer and continued negotiating with other clubs. In the end, the Yankees were the team that went the extra mile and walked away from free agency with the top pitcher and top hitter available. Mark Teixeira responded to their efforts by leading the league in home runs and runs batted in for the first time in his career, landing him runner-up in American League MVP voting at year's end. A year after missing the playoffs entirely, the New York Yankees spent their way to a 27th World Series championship in the season that followed, while the 95-win Red Sox were swept in the first round of the playoffs. Perhaps going the extra mile to sign Teixeira would have provided them the offensive and defensive stability they were desperately seeking for their infield in the early 2010s. And Red Sox fans, I'm really sorry, but we're not through with you yet. We got another case here. There are, in fact, plenty of examples of great Yankees players spurning the division rival, but one I learned about only recently through research takes us back to the 1990s once again. And considering how well documented this example is, I'm sure some of my older listeners know exactly where I'm going. Before Boston snapped their curse and became the most successful team of the 21st century, the organization was doing anything and everything to try and get some sort of edge over their division rival. The opportunity presented itself when, after a dominant 114-win season and World Series victory, the star center fielder of the Bronx Bombers was set to hit free agency at age 30 following the 1998 season. For a decade, Bernie Williams was one of the most consistent and underrated players in all of baseball. From 1995 to his contract year in 1998, Bernie hit above 300 with more than 4 WAR in each of those seasons. Coming off a season where he became the first player ever to win a batting title, a Gold Glove, and a World Series ring all in the same year, Bernie Williams was entertaining very lucrative offers in free agency. And his relationship with the Yankees wasn't exactly peachy at this point. The Yankees were in heavy pursuit of fellow free agent outfielder Albert Bell, influenced heavily by the lobbying of manager Joe Torre. Coming off their first playoff berth in 3 years, the Boston Red Sox had a decent bit of momentum and looked to seize the division, offering Bernie Williams a 7-year pact worth $91.5 million, which was well above what the Yankees were offering at the time. For reference, prior to the offseason, Bernie turned down a 5-year $37.5 million extension from the Yankees, leading then general manager Bob Watson to remark that he was offering star money to a non-star player. This is the type of shit GMs used to just get away with saying. Things were so different back then. At the time of the Red Sox offer, the Yankees had officially offered Albert Bell a 5-year contract worth $60 million. But when Scott Boras returned to New York looking for them to match Bernie's offer, Brian Cashman and George Steinbrenner turned their attention back to their center fielder. As a result, the Baltimore Orioles swooped in and nabbed Albert Bell with an extra $5 million. While the Yankees didn't fully match Boston's offer, their 7-year, $87.5 million contract was enough to secure Bernie Williams in pinstripes for long term, leaving the Red Sox empty-handed in a once-loaded free agent pursuit. Bernie would continue putting up consistently great seasons. As we all know, the Yankees would win 2 more World Series rings in a row, and it's hard to see that happening without Bernie Williams right in the middle of things. Brian Cashman would even go on to credit the Red Sox aggressiveness as the catalyst that evidently kept Bernie Williams a Yankee for life. Okay, I don't want to end today's video by just bullying the Red Sox, so why don't we end the video with the weirdest entry that I could possibly find. With perfect 2020 hindsight vision, we can all agree that the Albert Pujols signing with the Los Angeles Angels was a disastrous pairing that should have never formed in the first place. The colossal 10-year, $254 million pact signed by Pujols was laden with no trade clauses and player-friendly incentives, and it shook the baseball world to its very core. But it would be revisionist storytelling to act like there wasn't a number of different teams willing to go the extra mile to get Albert Pujols. The St. Louis Cardinals maxed out on an offer around 10 years and $200 million, while many other unlikely teams surged past that mark in hopes of adding Pujols, who was a 9-time All-Star and 3-time NL MVP at this point in his career. It seemed like for a while that the Cardinals and Angels were just negotiating against each other as the only real players in these sweepstakes, but a mystery third team would eventually emerge and become a serious player too, that being the Miami Marlins. For reference, the Miami Marlins were heading full steam ahead into their identity overhaul. They had changed their location, overhauled their uniforms, built a brand new stadium, and were already wheeling and dealing trying to build a National League contender. Before Pujols would eventually sign his contract, the club had already added shortstop Jose Reyes, all-star closer Heath Bell, and World Series champion Mark Burley via free agency. With with no results on the field to boast yet, the Miami Marlins were doing everything they could to become a desirable location. Believe it or not, the top offer that Pujols received in free agency came from these very Marlins, who were ready to commit to a 10-year, $274 million contract to land Pujols. This was nearly $20 million more than the offer he took from the Angels, and also this offer would have come with no state income tax and more added incentives. So the actual value of that contract probably soars to above $300 million. But the key difference in these negotiations was that the Marlins were never going to include the full no-trade clause that Albert Pujols wanted because all they do is trade. This was something that the Angels compromised on and of course would live to regret. The extra money didn't seem to be worth jeopardizing Pujols' stability, and the rest is history. And in all likelihood, Albert Pujols probably would not have fully prevented the 2012 Miami Marlins from being an abject disaster anyways. There's a real chance that, had he taken Miami's offer, he too would have been part of the fire sale that took place after the season. I personally would have loved to see what trading that contract would have been like, and most likely would have been as big a blockbuster as their trade of Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees years later. After missing out on blockbuster free agents in previous attempts, the Los Angeles Angels managed to finally land the big one in Albert Pujols. However, they would make the postseason just one time through the duration of the Pujols-Trout era, and this albatross contract is regarded as one of the worst in recent memory. And that'll do it for my list today. If I missed a big what if that you know of, leave a comment down below and maybe we'll do a part 2. And hey, I'm sure we're going to get some big time what ifs in free agency this year as well. Thanks so much for watching this video to the end. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. But that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys next time.